Halfling. Hope you're keeping well. If I twinge a little bit over the course of this video, please excuse me. I woke up this morning with pains all over my shoulder here. I think, I don't know, I must have twisted it or something while I was sleeping on it. Not sure what's happened. I certainly didn't lift anything heavy or awkward yesterday, so yeah, I don't know. Strange. My arms just decided not to work today, but I shall bear with it. Today's video, I'm going to do another show and tell army video, because when I did the last one, a bunch of you said that you liked seeing that kind of thing, so that's what I'm going to do. And I have just finished my halfling contingent for this month's Odds and Sods Old Hammer Challenge, so I thought this is a good opportunity. I've taken photos for that, so I will show you what I have on the halfling shelf. I almost didn't get this month's challenge done, because this month I've also been painting 30 hobgoblins for the Kickstarter, which is launching this Friday. So if hobgoblins are your thing, or you think hobgoblins might be your thing, do check it out. The Hobgoblins of the Black Waste is starting on Friday. I've added all of those miniatures over here to my orc army that I showed you several months ago now. So I'm not going to show you that one again, but that shelf is a bit more crowded now. This is always the way, isn't it? You keep adding things to it, and I just added those to it and thought, oh, that's it, that's that shelf done. And then the miniatures from the Osmotic Meld, the Ian Miller miniatures Kickstarter turned up, and I'm using the big standard bearer chap from that for that army. So there is still one model unpainted on that shelf, so it's again unfinished. Oh well, never mind. This is always the way when you collect miniatures and things, isn't it? You're always unfinishing projects as soon as you've finished them. Right, you won't be able to see these little guys, but here they are. This little section of shelf here is my halflings, and I will flash up some photos throughout the duration of talking about them, so that hopefully you can see them in a bit more detail. I am at some point going to take photos of these guys on the Hobbiton terrain that I built a few years ago, that's been to Boyle and back, but that's buried in a box somewhere. So when I get round to actually sort of clearing the decks, which hopefully once I've finished all my armies, I'll be able to clear the decks, have a look at some scenery stuff, get some stuff out, and get these armies on the table, take some more photos of them, and that'll be fun, but not just yet. Not just yet. They are next to my ogres. So this shelving unit here needs a bit of a sort out. Originally this was my shelving unit for painted finished figures, and my shelving unit of shame was over there where my undead army now are, and the bottom shelf of that is now all my unpainted night goblins that are my reward, remember, for finishing off all of my other armies. But it means that the rearrangement has put a lot of unpainted figures up here, so I've got lots of ogres and giants and trolls and centaurs and things here that need painting. I've got some of my burrows and badgers stuff that needs painting here. I've got my ogres here, some of which are unpainted, but I need to finish those for an Odds and Sods challenge. So people who are issuing the Odds and Sods challenge, I need to paint some ogres, please. Give me a theme for that. I've got dwarfs here. Eventually all of my dwarfs are going to sit here, so this is going to be like my humanoid contingent, so halflings, ogres and dwarfs. Then I've got my wood elves, and my Skaven, and my chaos army, and an assortment of snotlings and greenskins and things down here that are not sorted yet. So I do need to sort these shelves out properly once I've got my armies done. I'll have a good play and see where things best fit. But anyway, never mind, enough about that. Let's talk about my halflings. So this is an army that has a bunch of different models in it. I've got models from the most recent ones that I've just finished painting this month are from Old School Miniatures. I've got some Midland miniatures, I've got some Denizen miniatures, I've got some one, I think, original Citadel. There's some Wargames Atlantic stuff in here, and there's some Westphalia figures. And I should mention Westphalia with pride, because the hobgoblins that we've got coming out were formerly Westphalia resin figures. We've now put them into metal and introduced a few more variants. So that's what we're doing as our Kickstarter. But it was the Westphalia halflings that actually got me going on this project in the first place. These little guys riding their goats, the little halfling goat knights, which I thought they're amazing. I love them. And these were the first miniatures that I painted when I moved into this house, into this studio actually. And in commemoration of that, I thought I would make my halflings the denizens of the village town that I'm living in, which is Stonehouse, which is in Gloucestershire near Stroud, very south of the Cotswolds. And this sort of rural Gloucestershire area is apparently the area that Tolkien had in mind when he was creating the Shire, so I thought it was entirely appropriate to have some Shirish hobbit folks living in this area. So I've gone back to the old English Stanhus, which means stone house, which is based on the fact that there was a very old house built of stone here a very long time ago, when building of stone was an unusual thing. And so these are the Stanhussars, huzzah! Of course, the armoured wing. And because they are fairly armoured, I thought it would be fun to create a more armoured than usual halfling contingent. So a lot of my halflings have got more armour on than you would expect from a halfling village. And the colours are fairly typical halfling colours: red as an accent colour, but green and yellow. And then they have all got this little, well, not all of them, any of them that have shields or areas to put heraldry have got this single red rose on, which is the symbol still to this day of Stonehouse. That's because back in the Middle Ages, when Stonehouse became a town, its tie to the crown was a rose per annum, apparently. Now I don't know what that means. I've spoken to the Historical Society people and they don't know what that means either. I have a suspicion that the rose was like a monetary unit possibly, or a reference to such a thing. I really don't know, but yeah, a rose per annum. So the rose is the symbol, and a bunch of them have words from the motto of the town, which appears in full on the big banner dude guy here, which is Floret, Floruit, Floriat, which, if anyone speaks Latin, you'll be able to translate that. That means it flowers, it has flowered, it will flowers. I mean, so in terms of, it flourishes, it has flourished, it will flourish as a motto. So yeah, that's the motto of the town, which I think was quite a fun motto. It's a nice place, by the way. Has its less nice features, obviously, which you find out when you live there, but it's yeah, I like it. It's a nice little town. Yeah, so that's been the basis for the army. Now, up until fairly recently, the army consisted of those Westphalia miniatures and the little Westphalia mage dude, halfling mage dude, and I would love to get a bunch of the other figures, but I think they've stopped doing them now, and I'm not sure where they've ended up. So when I find out where they've ended up, I may get some more, but as you can see, the shelf is already pretty full, so I don't know that I have room for much more in the way of halflings. So they were the start, and then I added to them a bunch of the ex-Metal Magic, now Midland miniatures figures, and actually most of these are dwarves in plate armour, and initially I got some of the dwarves, but actually I bought these, I think, second hand off eBay, but I got a lot that had a lot of the dwarf figures with no beards visible. Well, that's great, they can be my halflings. I don't really mind they've got armoured shoes on. I feel like while it's funny to have exposed feet, that's really not something you'd want if you were going into battle in full armour, so I don't mind that they are fully armoured. So I got those, but then I've also got a bunch of the ones that do have very obvious exposed beards, and I don't really mind that because they're not strictly hobbits. They're halflings, and we can invent the background as we like. And in any case, even if they were hobbits, they could be stores. I guess that's the strain that has a beard, right? And after all, there are people in Gloucestershire who have very fine beards, so we can't deny the Gloucestershire halfling that luxury. So I managed to. I decided to add some of those into the army as well, and then I thought, while I was doing bits with beards and armour, I would check out the Denizen miniatures dwarves. They're a similar size, and they're quite rotund, but they're much smaller than your regular dwarf. If I find this is a you can't really see the difference in size there, but there you go. That's a Ralpatha dwarf, even smaller next to the Marauder dwarfs. They are very little, and really intricately detailed. I really like I'm getting really into smaller figures. I like the sort of true 25mm Ralpatha stuff, and I love the very fine detail on it. I think actually, as examples of sculpting, they're a lot nicer than some of the bigger figures, just because of how difficult it is to sculpt that sort of accurate, realistic detail on small things. Anyway, so yeah, I bought a bunch of the Denizen multi-part figures, and they work really nicely as armoured halflings if you don't like the beards. There are some that have helmets that allow you to hide those, but they complement really well. So I got those. I then decided that they should have some heavy support. So here is my halfling war turtle. He's a Rapham war tortoise, rather, not turtle. Doesn't have flippers, has feet. Tortoise. He's a Rapham war tortoise with a Citadel Blood Bowl halfling riding him. I thought that the armoured shell and the armoured halfling together would make quite a nice combo. Originally, this halfling, I chopped his legs off and mounted them on the side because I was going to have him lowered onto a pony by another halfling, or perhaps a snotling, on a winch, and have that as a little diorama. But that never happened, so I thought I'll use him to sit on the turtle now. So that's what he's doing. He's obviously painted in the same green and yellow colour scheme as the rest of the halflings, which makes him look like a character from a certain popular movie game franchise, and I've really lent into that with the colouring of his eyebrows and things. I think it's entirely appropriate that he should look like King Bowser Cooper. So that happened. I haven't actually got a base for him yet. I should probably put him on a base. Then what was the next thing to add? I should mention, while I was talking about the metal magic figures, I've got a few of them that are not halflings or dwarfs, but because they are really small, they don't fit with any of the other human figures that I've got, so I've put them in here. And maybe they're foundling children that the halflings have raised, much in the same way that Captain Carrot in the Discworld series is raised by dwarves. Maybe these are raised by halflings. But anyway, this one, there's a one that's very clearly a Wonder Woman rip-off, and then there's the tall chap who's got similar armour to the other sort of halfling militia. And the one that I think is a Citadel halfling child pointing, but could very well not be. If you know what he is, tell me what he is, because I haven't got a clue. He came in a junk lot a little while ago, and I have no idea what he is. Yeah, that's where I was, and then I took advantage of the War Games Atlantic deal, where you got a sprue of their new, then still fairly new, I guess a couple of years old, plastic halfling multi-part figures with a copy of Wargames Illustrated, I think, was it? No, Miniature Wargames magazine, I think. One of those. And while I'm on the subject of Miniature Wargames magazine, keep an eye out for the next edition, because there's going to be a special Woods scenario in it that we have prepared in advance of Salute. So that will be in the magazine, and hopefully there'll be another article following up in a couple of months' time. So yeah, some exposure, hooray! Anyway, back to these plastic halflings that were, as I say, free with whatever the magazine was. I hate multi-part figures, even plastic ones. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I think I've mentioned it before. Sticking them together, they were an absolute bastard to stick together. But they are they're together now, and they're quite nice figures. The detail's all right. They're quite cheap, I think, if you buy them. So I would not feel put out had I bought a bunch of these. Yeah, they fit their purpose. There's a whole host of options, so many spare heads, and extra weapons, and so I think you've got five bodies on a sprue with like 12 heads and 8 different weapons and all sorts of things, so lots of room for variation. But I made up 4 of these guys as sort of militia pikemen types, because I figured they looked military enough that they fitted with the general theme of the army. And then the one remaining guy I made up as an archer, just because that's that seemed to be the body that was left over, seemed to lend himself to being an archer. But then I had a couple of extra heads. So when I was playing with my orcish army, I don't know if you remember, one of the things that I did was I took a bunch of the plastic Moria goblins, the Games Workshop Moria goblins, and also a bunch of the cast it yourself Prince August orcs, which had really featureless faces. Mike, they almost looked like they were sculpted by Nick Lund. Ha ha! Ha ha! There's a jibe that none of you will get, but I'm not a fan of Nick Lund orcs. That's the secret there. Anyhow, so I took those and I chopped the heads off, and I put the Wargames Factory orc heads on that looked like the Angus McBride orcs. They had the big, horned salets and things, which looked really appropriate, and I think that worked really well. So I thought I would try the same thing with a couple of the Prince August warriors and magic users that I had in a drawer. So I locked their heads off, and I put the spare Wargames Atlantic halfling heads on. They don't look too bad. They didn't work quite as well. They are quite tall still. Excuse me, tall still for halflings. So maybe they're foundlings as well. But they look better anyway with the bigger heads and the slightly more detailed heads of the Wargames Atlantic figures, even though they're not super duper detailed on them. But I didn't do any more. The experiment wasn't successful enough that I decided that I wanted to do any more of them. But I did use a few more of the Wargames Atlantic halfling heads. The full helmeted heads I used on my Empire army on a couple of pieces, because when it's got a big helmet on, you can't tell whether it's a halfling head or a accurately proportioned human head underneath it. And then that's where my army sat for quite some time, until last summer, when I got hold of the full range of halflings from Old School Miniatures, which I had been eyeing up for a while. So I got my hands on those, and I've just finished painting those up this month, and they are very lovely sculpts. I enjoyed it. So there's a combination of sort of knightly type figures and militia type figures, and then general halfling peasant-y types there, and the sort of, I guess some of them are slightly Robin Hoody bow wielding types. So that really sort of rounds out the army. I guess it has a bit more of a sort of peasant levy to go with the armed soldiers now, which is good. And if you're interested, the theme for the Odds and Sods challenge this month was humble. which is why ogres didn't seem appropriate to me. Wood elf cavalry that I've still got to do didn't really seem appropriate. High elves definitely not humble. So that Screaming Bell didn't seem to be particularly humble either, so I sort of left me with thinking the halflings are what I need to be doing this month. So that was the reason behind my choice. There is one figure in here that, although the rider is old school miniatures, the pony itself is foundry, and again I got that in a trade either last summer or the summer before, can't remember which, with a view to putting a halfling on him and this rider. I don't know if he is a rider actually in the original range. I don't think he is, but I bent his legs out a little bit, and he looks to me like he's suitable for riding that. Maybe he's a mare, and that actually reminds me that I haven't quite finished him. I've just noticed that I haven't done his chain. I need to paint in his gold mayoral chain, and then he will be finished. So I'm glad I did this video, because otherwise I'd have missed that. Yeah, that's not quite all of my halflings. I would be lying to say that was all of my halflings, because over on my Townsfolk shelf, I've got a bunch of the assault group, formerly White Knight, chunkier, wider halflings, the man catcher halflings, standing on each other's shoulders with the big man catchers that I use as rat catchers in my medieval city, but they're painted in the same colour scheme. They don't quite match. While these guys are quite a variation of manufacturers, I feel like size-wise there's no more variation than you would get in a general populace variation, and the colours really sort of try and tie everything in together. But these guys, they're big, they're really wide, they're almost sort of dwarfish in their girth, so they don't really fit in very well. They feel like they're a completely different scale, so I've kept those separate. But I have also got in my Townsfolk area the halfling peasant farmers that Midland put out. Was that last year? No, I feel like that might have been 2020, end of 2020. Anyway, I can't remember. They're probably on the website by now. And I've painted those up as sort of Amish farmer types, very puritanical farmer types. So if I were to do a village raid scenario, which I almost certainly will do at some point, then they would be in there, as well as the regular agricultural peasant type folk, but they're not on the army shelf because they're not expressly military. They're in fact expressly townsfolky, or village folky anyway. So they're over there, and then there's a couple of others. There's an assault group bard and the halfling highwayman that was part of one of the Boyle figures, and there's a guy eating a big burger that I can't remember where he came from actually. I think he was a Boyle miniature as well actually. Well, I think certainly, at least I got him a Boyle. I don't know if he was a Boyle special edition. Anyway, never mind, I got one from Boyle. But they feel a bit more a different scale again, but also they feel more sort of special townsfolky, not townsfolky, I'm sorry, what do I mean? Feel more sort of roleplay adventurer type figures. So they're over there with my roleplayer adventurers, because, you know, I've got my Empire armies over there, right? But my human civilians are with my townsfolk, and my human adventurers are over there. So just because they're halflings, that doesn't mean all halflings have to be grouped together, right? You can have halfling army, halfling townsfolk, halfling adventurers. They shouldn't, you know, we shouldn't group people together in racial classes just because they're ethnic minorities in the wargaming world, right? So yeah, they're all spread out. Anyway, I have rambled for quite long enough about this army. If you want to see any other pictures, better pictures, closer up pictures that stand still, go to my blog, fimmccalls.blogspot.com, but I'll put the link in the comments or in the about section below the video, because it's really hard to say that name. Maybe one time I'll tell you why I chose that name. It wasn't the best name to choose to read out on video. Anyway, I shall tell you about that some other time. But that's where you'll find photos of these guys, and as I say, I'll hopefully do photos with a big scenic layout at some point when I've cleared off my table. At the moment, my table is full of cleaning up Hobgoblin mastercasts to send off to Chris for moulding to fulfil the Kickstarter, which I think I mentioned starts on Friday. So if you fancy getting some Hobgoblins of the Black Waste Kickstarter starts on Friday. But also I've got a bunch of boxes because I'm busy packing for Overlord in Abingdon, which is on Sunday. So if you're Oxford area of the country, it'd be great to see you in Abingdon at Overlord on Sunday, when I will have things to sell. And I'm going to do another video, not now, not for this week, maybe not even next week. So it'll come out after the show, in that sort of weird way of looping things that videos do. But anyway, after the show, there will be a video of me before the show, trying to put the stand together, because I'm using this show as a bit of a test ahead of Salute next month, which is obviously a really big show. I've not done Overlord before, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Salute I have done a couple of times now. It's been a fantastic show, I've enjoyed it. Looking forward to this one, but it is a big thing, so I need to do a lot of casting, I need to do a lot of packing, and I need to make sure that my stand is absolutely sorted for that. And I've got time, I've got a couple of months, but yeah, I've got another big project coming in, and I hope, fingers crossed I get it. It's a really exciting project which is going to take me out pretty much until the end of April, so pretty much until Salute has been and gone. So that means I need to get really ahead of my game now with getting stuff prepped for Salute, on the off chance, or hopefully it's an on chance, you know, I'm really hoping that it comes through, and I'm really hoping I can show you some pictures of it, because it's going to be awesome, it's going to be absolutely amazing if it happens. But yeah, I'll let you know what that is when I know what that is. In the meantime, if you have liked this rambling account of what's going on in my studio at the moment, then please like it. Please leave me a comment with what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see more of, and you can subscribe, and you can hit the alarm button so that you get notified when there's another video. Hopefully, I keep saying I'm really busy, but you know, when you're really busy you get more stuff done, right? That's how it seems to be. So I'm hoping that there will be a few more videos coming up over the next couple of months, more so than I managed at the end of last year, and yeah, that will notify you when they are coming out. Check out, I haven't mentioned it yet, have I, the Hobgoblins of the Black Waste Kickstarter that's starting on Friday. Check that one out. And also this Friday, there's another edition of the Acorn, which is the Oakbound newsletter coming out. Go to oakbound.co.uk/news and you can sign up for the newsletter. It's absolutely free, doesn't cost you anything. It arrives in your inbox on the first Friday of every month, and it's not just here's what we're doing, here's what we're releasing, trying to sell you stuff. We try and actually put some content in there as well. So every month there's some game content, whether it's a scenario or some special rules, or perhaps like a tactics article or a scenery making article or something. And this week, or this month, it's an extra special article. I'm very excited about this one because I haven't written this one. This is from Roddy. If you were at the first Woods in the Woods, you'll have met Roddy. He was off with COVID unfortunately last year, but hopefully he'll be back this year. He's a good mate of mine. He's actually the guy who encouraged me to go back to wargame sculpting in the first place, so I owe him a great deal. And he's come up with a bunch of folk-specific objectives for the woods. So if you're looking to perhaps take on some different challenges in your games of the woods, then this is one that you'll want to see, because it's got a whole bunch of very, very flavoursome objectives in. So go to oakbound.co.uk/news and sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get that free in your inbox on Friday. That's enough of a ramble for me for now. Take care, and I will see you next week.